First program we want to talk about is a little bit, it was kind of mentioned before, it's called Academic Center, or AC for short. And again, it is, the students are placed in this class based on our recommendation, the counselor's recommendation. It's a mutual agreement between us and the student. It'll be more of a academically academic program that is focusing on the student's development and more support in that class. It will be a full year class. So if that is something that the student and the counselor agree on, the student has to be in that class for both semesters, and they can't drop halfway. So it is something that is a full year commitment for that. In short, AC it provides the student with a location and an atmosphere for study and assisted learning. It's a place where they are getting more support and more help academically with their work, their schoolwork. So they are expected to bring their schoolwork, their laptops, whatever coursework that they usually have. They are expected to bring that with them to AC so that they can work on it with the teacher that is teaching at AC. So the main goal for Academic Center is to provide the opportunity for students to complete their work, their schoolwork, to spend time studying if they need to have teacher access if they need help for grades, to improve their grades with their coursework if they need help with something specific. They have a chance to make up tests if they need to, and to overall just gain more assistance and help with from the teacher. So another program is called SWARM. And SWARM is an acronym. It stands for Students Working for Academic and Relational Mastery. So, this program is specifically designed for students who are struggling both academically and behaviorally. So there is a select number of students who are part of our SWARM program this semester as well as last semester. And there has been shown improvement with the students' academic ability and their behavior as well. So this is another cool program, different than Academic Center. It's not necessarily a class that they are put into and to have a teacher. It's not like that. It gives the student an opportunity for them to work in a one-on-one environment with two of our success coordinators. And they have the will or the ability to work in a different environment. Sometimes a change of scenery is helpful for students, or in a smaller group and not necessarily sitting in the classroom with the large class. This time, again, similar to AC, is used to work on or work through missing assignments with those success coordinators. And it helps the students stay accountable for their work and their grades. And another kind of intervention or developmental class, reading intervention classes. This is taught by our teacher, Mrs. Summers. She also has the ability to go inside different classrooms and be a supportive person in specific classrooms as well. In this reading intervention class, students receive instruction in comprehension strategies using the Adolescent Accelerated Reading Initiative, or AARI. And that's a program that's supported by Oakland Schools. And the students are selected in this, or put in this class based on their NWA scores and different teacher recommendations. So it's more so of a selection rather than students requesting it. And again, this is used, and it's an opportunity for those students to work in small group instruction, both in and out of the classroom, based on their needs, of course. And again, Ms. Summers goes into different classrooms, wherever that student needs help or support, she's there to be that supportive person for them.
Okay, so I'm going to be talking about some other supports that we have. So we have what's called an IEP, which stands for Individualized Education Plan. And this is designed for a student who has special needs or a disability in one of the listed 13 areas according to the IDEA. And so this is a plan or so much like a blueprint for a child's experience at the school, at the high school. So it does provide individualized instruction, related services to that particular student. So it's going to be as individualized as possible for your student. And you do have to get evaluated in order to have the student has to get evaluated in order to get an IEP. So they do have to specifically have one of those 13 areas of a disability, and that disability is affecting their educational performance or ability to learn, which they would require some specialized instruction like study skills or practical English and that sort of thing. So a 504 is another type of plan. However, it's about any disability, so it doesn't have to be the 13 areas listed from the IEP. So the 504 is designed for a child with a disability that also interferes with learning. But again, it's not one of those that's the 13 listed. It could include any learning or attention issues. So if they do have ADHD, this would be something that they could request to have. And the disability must interfere with the child's ability to learn in their general education classrooms. So they wouldn't be placed into any of the specialized classrooms like the practical English or the study skills. Is there a question? So the question is, does a child get assigned a social worker to talk to for 504? So it wouldn't be through a 504. If the student is going to have a 504, they would be talking to one of the counselors, their own counselor. If they have an IEP and it's in their plan, their IEP plan, to have a social worker, then they would go to the social worker. But the social workers here, their caseload is the special education students, and for 504s, they would go to their last name counselor, their caseload counselor, if that makes sense. So what would happen is that if your child is hearing impaired, you can request a 504, and we could we would have to go through an evaluation meeting and see if they're eligible for it, and then come up with some accommodations for your student. Okay, so she has a 504. Okay, so then if she has a 504 now, then if they're at the middle school, we will be doing 504 move-ups towards the end of the year, like in April or May. And so we would be, her counselor would be in that meeting with her current middle school counselor, and we would look at the accommodations that she currently has and adjust it to what she would have in her high school, in the high school. I hope that answered your question. I think I answered Toby family question. How is course schedule decided in regards to next year? Did I answer that question already, or?
So if your student already has a 504 in the middle school, again, when we have that move up meeting, that can be discussed during that meeting, if there are needs or accommodations needed to be made for their scheduling. So that can be something that we talk about in that evaluation I'm sorry, not the move up meeting. And another question was, how can we investigate swarm instead of academic center? So what, I guess I don't understand what you mean by investigate. So academic center is something that we would place, the counselor would place that student in academic center based on if they needed more help or more support. Swarm is usually for students that need both academic and behavioral support. And they're different in some ways. Academic center, again, is an actual class that they'd have in their schedule, whereas being part of the swarm program is not, they're not in a class by any means. It's just additional support from two individuals who are reaching out to that student and offering help, giving them the ability to come or invite them to their specific office. And if they wanted to do individual work on their own and work in a smaller group, they have the ability to do that. But it's not a class. They don't earn any kind of credit or a grade for it, whereas academic center is a class with credit and grades. I hope that answers the question.
Okay, I'm gonna finish up, and then if you have more questions, we can go through them. So our last intervention or development program that we have is English language learner, which we call ELL. So this is designed for students in which English is not their first language or English is not spoken at their home. So this is a plan for a student to have access in learning at the school. So it provides some services and changes to the learning environment to meet that need for that student. So how a student is identified is through a home language survey. If a language other than English, again, is not spoken at home, the student will be flagged. And once the student is flagged, they would be given a WIDA screener, and that would be a test that they would need to be taking to identify where they would be placed. So if they need to be placed in a English language development class for their English class, they could do that. Or if they just need a tutorial, which is basically an academic center for the English language learners. So that's another program that we have. And if there's any questions about any of these, we will be happy to help.